free. Just when he least expected it, he would catch a hint of her fragrance. He was sitting in the Scarparelli seafood restaurant in North Beach, with Monsignor McDowell on his right and the mayor's chief aide on his left, when he smelled it in the garlic and rosemary sauce. He was reading his report on the homeless figures and the soup kitchen's budget when he caught it, and he quickly sniffed his fingers as if he were scratching his nose. Her scent was everywhere, yet nowhere, and gradually it dawned on him that her aroma lingered in his mind. A dark-haired woman wearing a red dress came in and snagged his attention while the mayor's aide was talking to him. John watched the woman, holding hands with a date or her husband, as she neared the table and passed it, and he heard her say something to the man in a voice that was nothing like Deborah Rox's. "See what I mean?" the aide, a somber-faced man named Vandervolk, asked him. John nodded yes, without really understanding the question. "No, we do not see what you mean," McDowell said quickly, his crusty, age-spotted face growing deep wrinkles as he scowled. "Either we get the matching funds or we'll have to shut down to half what we're doing now. That's the bottom line." He glared with his ice-blue eyes at John Lancaster. The conversation went on, edging toward heat, and John's attention drifted in and out. He sipped red wine and smelled her. He clasped his hands and saw her lips behind the grill. He heard a woman laugh, and he looked around so fast McDowell said, "John, what the hell is wrong with you, boy?" "Nothing. Sorry. I was thinking about something else." When McDowell got mad, you better pay heed. "Well, think about the business at hand," the Monsignor ordered, and continued his debate with Vandervolk and the other three men at the table. John tried to, but it was a difficult task. He kept seeing swirls of red from the corners of his eyes, and then he was gone again. He had taken 3 cold showers, bang, 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 one right after the other. Then he'd sat down and concentrated on his jigsaw puzzle, still dripping wet and shivering. He'd gotten 4 pieces mashed down into the wrong grooves before he gave it up. And then, as if in a sleepwalker's daze, he'd found himself standing at the window, stark naked and broken out in goosebumps, staring at that red X in the sky. "I've got a movie showing on the Strip," she'd said. "Isn't it, Father Lancaster?" John looked, alarmed, into the Monsignor's face. "Isn't it?" McDowell asked again, his eyes threatening rage. "Yes, sir, it certainly is," John answered, and McDowell smiled and nodded. "We'll tackle the porno problem at a later date," Vandervolk said. "As both you gentlemen are well aware, the mayor is doing everything possible to clean that area up. But those people have got smart lawyers, and they slam the First Amendment in your face like a hot skillet." "Well, get better lawyers then," McDowell thundered. "Pay 'em more. For going on 25 years, I've had to sit on the edge of that filth and watch it grow like a cancer. You know, somebody went crazy over there last night and killed some people. Probably was teased to madness by some, dare I say, whore with the morals of a pack rat. When is the mayor going to get that filth out of my parish?" John had lifted a fork of whitefish to his mouth. Now he paused and looked at McDowell. Looked at him long and hard as the old Monsignor continued to rage about the porno district. He thought he saw a callous face behind that age-spotted flesh that he'd never seen before. McDowell hit the table with his fist and made the silverware jump. "She was a person," John said. McDowell's mouth stopped. He stared at John. "What?" John had spoken without thinking. He was trembling inside. He put the fork down, the whitefish uneaten. She must have been a person. The girl who was shot." "What do you know about it?" McDowell challenged. Now was the moment to tell him about Deborah Rox. Here it was. But John reached for his glass of wine, and the moment slid forever past. "I say load 'em all up on a garbage barge and send 'em to the sea," McDowell stormed on. "Maybe you can get a good fishing reef in the bargain." John felt a little sick. It was the wine, he thought. Deborah Rox's scent welled out of it. Someone opened a red menu 2 tables away. John thought he was sweating under his clothes, and his collar seemed too tight, starched way too stiff. It was rubbing blisters on the back of his neck. And then, terrifyingly fast, the image of Deborah Rox, faceless, and a second faceless girl on the beach with 2 Mexican lifeguards came into his mind and leached there, and he thought, simply, "I'm going crazy." "What did you say?" Vandervolk asked him. "I said, this wine's making me feel a little hazy." He hadn't thought he'd spoken, and this new laxness of his discipline frightened him on a deep, primeval level. He felt like a clock without hands, his insides wound up and running, but his face totally blank. The taste of garlic was powerful in his mouth, and he suddenly realized how cockeyed this was. Men arguing about feeding the homeless from under-budgeted soup kitchens while eating $20 meals off Blue Bone china. Something was skewed here, and very wrong, and that awareness, coupled with the steamy image of Deborah Rox on a sun-splashed beach, made him fear for a second that he was going to be spun off the very earth. "Where would they go?" John asked with an effort. "Where would who go?" The Monsignor was wiping his plate with a bread crust. "The women in the porno district. Where would they go if everything shut down?" "Not if. When." McDowell frowned, the lines knotting between his bushy white eyebrows. "That's a strange question, John." "It may be." He looked around uneasily at the other men. "But I think it's a fair question. What would happen to the women?" "They'd be forced to find decent jobs, for one thing," McDowell said. "And the important thing is that the filth would be off the streets where school children wouldn't have to see it every day." "I know that's important, but..." He paused, trying to figure out how to say this. "It seems to me that maybe we ought to consider the women, and men too, who work over there. I mean, it's one thing to say they'd be forced to find decent jobs, and it's another to believe that they actually would find them. I don't think the city would spring for a fund to re-educate prostitutes and go-go dancers, a lot of whom are probably hooked on drugs." He glanced at Vandervolk, who had stony eyes, then back to McDowell, who sat with the bread crust frozen at his mouth. "They wouldn't exactly become Catholics overnight." He tried for a smile, but his face felt rubbery. "I guess, sir, that what I'm trying to say is, who'll take these people in when we throw them out?" A silence stretched. McDowell chewed on the bread and washed it down with a long swallow of wine. "Your question," he answered finally, "is not based on the greater good. These people have chosen their own paths, and we're not responsible for them." "We're not?" John asked, and in his voice and soul there was a deep puzzlement and hurt. "No," McDowell said. He put his wineglass down. "We were talking about the homeless problem. How did we get off the subject?" No one told him he had sidetracked the conversation himself. The dinner and discussion went on, but from that point no questions were fielded to Father Lancaster. And that was fine with him, because he concentrated on finishing his wine and trying, unsuccessfully, to banish Deborah Rox's voice from his fevered brain. "I've got a movie showing on the Strip,"